I'm going to be talking on legacy. And legacy is something that outlives us, right? Whether we think of legacy, I think we think of legacy in different things. So when I was younger, I thought I wanted a good legacy, which was, I want people to remember I was a nice guy. I want people to go, he was a real man of God, whatever that is, okay, to me at that time. I wanted people to go, yeah, I could really count on Chris, that sort of thing. So that's, in essence, what I thought I wanted as a legacy. Turns out it wasn't as I got older and a lot smarter. Well, somewhat smarter. So I'm going to fill you in on who I am a bit. Most people know I'm an elder. That's fine. They know I'm Chris. And I cry a lot, especially when I'm speaking. And I hate that. All right, I really do. So Lord, turn the waterworks off. All right. Let's get through this. We can get through this. So thank you. So everyone knows I'm Chris. What they don't know, and I won't make a lot of eye contact because I did have a coworker say, typical, pretend they're all naked wearing black socks, so I'm not going to look at Mitchell at all during the service. Told you I was going to say it. Come on, buddy. So what people don't know about Chris is that I'm a former anger addict. The kids? No, kids. And I struggled for years with porn. Okay. What they also don't know is I grew up in a loving home to Al and Sheila Rayner. I had an older brother, 9 years old. We actually don't talk anymore right now, and my mom was a good woman. God-fearing woman. She literally would put the fear of God in me some days. But she was always preaching, go to Jesus, go to Jesus, go to Jesus. You got a problem? Go to Jesus. So that was my mom. My dad, on the other hand, he didn't go to church. So for my childhood up to my early adults, I knew an angry man because he was angry. Oh my goodness, was he an angry man? He was a good man, loving man, loved his boys, but he was always secretive. I found he was, easy, like he was like a stick of dynamite without the wick, it just went off, right? Like that's how easy it was with him sometimes. So I learned that as a kid, unfortunately. And I know that as I've, gone to churches throughout my life, I know there's others in churches, and I'm sure there's others in this room that are struggling with similar things, right? May not be porn, that's fine, but it could be anger. It could be resentment. That's a form of anger, right? It could be feeling that God let you down, whatever it is. So we're all in it together, basically, whatever you're struggling with. Everyone's struggling with something. It's usually similar anyways. So that's who I am in a nutshell. I'm a little screwed up, but I'm a good guy, all right? So I got my problems, but we all do. So when I was confirmed to speak at a church, this is actually 10 years ago, a church in town where Lisa and I were going here, I started looking through the Bible and what am I going to talk about? Like, this is crazy. And then I found Micah, the prophet, the book of Micah. Not a long book. Has anyone actually ever read Micah? Okay, so if you haven't, and if you're the type of person that maybe gets a little anxious when you read something, or a little something stirs in you, don't read Micah. It's not exactly the most friendly book. Okay, and I'll explain why in a second. But I'm going to give you a little rundown of who Micah was, and then a rundown of the chapters, the 7 chapters of Micah. So Micah was an author, obviously, Book of Micah. He was one of the 12 minor prophets and lived around the 8th century. Okay, he was a contemporary of Isaiah, and he was a strong advocate for the poor and the oppressed. He lived in a town called Moreshgath, which was in Judah, and he delivered messages basically prophecies and that against those who injustice, corruption, and idolatry. He prophesied the fall of Samaria and of Jerusalem, which actually came true. Side note, it actually did happen. They were taken over by the Syrians and the Babylonians, I believe. He also promised future restoration under a future Davidic king from Bethlehem. If you don't know who that is, I would suggest you read the Bible. All right. What was the word from God? So, in a nutshell, do you have the map there? Thank you. All right. Zach is not a nerd, as he said in his messages. He doesn't put maps. I am a nerd. I work for IT, so I am a nerd. All right. So here is Gath. And he lived in Moorish Gath, which was basically, archaeologists say it was on the border of the Philistines, which is this region here. So Micah lived in around this area. He prophesied against Samaria and Jerusalem, right? So he didn't really even live in the cities, but he was prophesying what God was going to do to these cities, all right? What was he prophesying there? The destruction and fall, or why, I should say, he was? Well, both these cities had fallen into idolatry. Apostasy is one of the words, but idolatry. The core of the sin was turning away from God to worship idols. And this was particularly happening in Samaria, but Jerusalem was allowing it to also happen in their city. Okay? High places. These were unauthorized altars, often on hills, used to worship Baal. This one was a weird one. Syncretism is mixing God's worship with pagan practices. And at this time, it was the pagan practice with the Canaanites. So defiling the pure service of the Lord. Right? So they were taking a little bit of the Canaanite stuff, mixing it with what God said. Boom, hey, everything's great. Well, it was not, unfortunately. And then social justice. There was a lot of corruption. There was a lot of oppression against the poor, against widows. There was a lot of poor practice in business and the courts, a lot of cheating. So kind of not different than today, really, if you really want to look at it. Okay. So that was basically what Micah was doing. All right, you still with me? Because when I get nervous, I babble and I talk a lot. All right, so you have to forgive me if I kind of squirrel. All right, so I'll give you a basic rundown here of Micah. So chapters 1 to 3, pretty much the same thing. He is basically prophesying the destruction and God's judgment, and he's warning people. He's rebuking the leaders and the false prophets. That's 3 chapters of you guys messed up, right? That's basically what it is. Chapter 4 is then declaring God's intention to bring his chosen people back to him and restoring peace among the nations, and about righting wrong steps with his people. And I love this one. And then teaching him his ways. So that means he was going to spend time with them and show them again what he wanted. Chapter 5, squirrels. Chapter 5 goes into predicting the birth of Jesus. Right? So I kind of laugh because I've read Micah, I don't know how many times. There was like 3 chapters of, you're a dummy, you're an idiot, what are you doing? You went away from God. Oh, by the way, Jesus is coming. Right? And I was like, wow, that's weird, but okay, great. And then chapter 6, he goes back to, but you messed up. You're a dummy. What are you doing, guys? Come on, you broke the covenant. But in one verse, and this is the verse that caught my attention, he actually gave the people of that time a way out, right? Because I'm sure if you hear someone going, yeah, you messed up. Yeah, you screwed. Like, what are you doing? And then our obvious reaction or question is, what do you want from me? What do you want me to do? Micah 6:8. Once we get it there. This is literally God's expectation for the people of Israel, but it is his expectation for us today. Micah 6:8. He has shown you, O mortal. And in some translations, it's man, that sort of thing, which is fine, whatever it is. But he has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. So with that, I kind of went, wow, okay. And I remember when I first read that verse years ago, I was like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like, so some of the aspects, like I'll look at some of these aspects here. So for justice, restoring right relationships. Well, it aimed at for a balanced and harmonious relationship where everyone flourished, contrasting with injustice where one group dominates, right? So everyone had a say. Everyone was treated the right way, shall we say, okay? Care for the vulnerable, right? A primary expression of justice is defending the oppressed, which in this case, poor widows and orphans and foreigners. And this is from, if you looked at a couple of verses, I won't read them, but Isaiah 1:17, Deuteronomy 10:18 speaks to this. Fairness and impartiality. Judges and citizens treat rich and poor equally without bribery or favoritism. And that was actually, I found that one in Deuteronomy 16:20. God's character, this one, when we get to mercy, this one really blew my mind about God's character. God's character, justice flows from God's own righteousness and love. He is inherently just and demands it from his people. That's Psalm 98:9. Righteous conduct. This includes ethical business practices and lawful, deserved consequences in legal matters. That came from Leviticus 19, verse 36. What I found was with God's justice, not Webster's justice, but God's justice, it's active. Right? There's no concept. God's love isn't a nice concept. God's love is definite. Right? There's no wavering with God's justice. Right? Second guessing, shall we say. We are actively to seek the well-being and rights of others, even giving radical generosity. And that generosity could be time, could be money, could be possessions. Biblical justice, God's justice, is holistic. It's about being fair, protecting and caring for the weak and the oppressed, and reflecting God's own just and loving nature in our actions. So I kind of went through justice, and I was like, well, I missed the mark. Because you know what? If someone was hurting one of my kids, my justice would be, I'm going to knock that person out. That to me would be justice. That's not God's justice, unfortunately. God's justice, here's the one thing. I'm trying not to squirrel, but this is just kind of coming to me now. But when God said, I'm a loving God, I'm a just God, but I'm a vengeful God, he takes care of the justice for us. So we have to just leave it to him. Oh man, well, I did squirrel there. Sorry, but see, I squirrel. I apologize if I kind of went off key there. But next one, mercy. Oh, this one really, like even this week, I probably gone over this whole thing now like 20 times, and I get stuck on mercy because it is so incredibly hard for me to understand in a lot of ways. All right, so mercy, compassionate, again, Mr. Webster, compassionate, lenient, or benevolent treatment of an offender or enemy that is shown by someone who withholds punishment or harm. I was like, wow, okay, cool. That's okay. God's mercy is compassionate. It is kind. It is loving. And here's the kicker. It's not earnable. There is nothing we can do to earn his mercy. Absolutely nothing. Right? I'm a good guy. I help the poor. Awesome. Billy Graham, let's put it this way. Billy Graham couldn't earn mercy. Really couldn't, unfortunately. Mercy is freely given by God. His mercy provides a withholding of punishment, but it also provides a way to forgiveness. Throughout the Bible, God's mercy has been shown really in a lot of examples. So here's the first one I found. Cain, first murder ever recorded was Cain, right? Killed his brother. God banished him from the land. And so if you read that story, Cain is actually having a face-to-face with God. And God's like, you got to go. You sinned, you killed your brother. No, you got to go. And Cain's response was, don't do that because if I go out there, they're going to kill me. Like, no, like, please don't send me away. And God said, okay, I'm going to mark you. And he gave Cain a mark that people knew Cain was not to be touched. That's actually mercy. So Cain was not murdered. At least it's not recorded, but that he was, how he died. But it is recorded in the Bible that he was marked by God so that others would not touch him. That is mercy. Maybe harsh, but that's mercy. King David, my goodness, here's a guy that had everything. And Zach's talked about him. Killed a friend, slept with his friend's wife, did a lot of bad things and had everything to live for and had everything in life, but he still messed up. But yet when he repented, God called him a man after his own heart. He still showed mercy to David. He kept him on the throne. Things may have happened to David. I think he lost a son, right? A newborn son and that. So some things still happened, but God still showed him mercy. And this one, oh my goodness, nation of Israel. So if you ever read the Old Testament and you're like me, Israel was dumb. The nation of Israel, they had a covenant with a living God. God's like, you're my people. I'm going to protect you. They're like, yeah. 2 minutes later, oh, let's build another idol. Right? God says, no. Come on, come back to me. They're like, yay, God. They go back to God. Another covenant. If you read the Bible, God made covenant after covenant after covenant with Israel, with the nation of Israel. And they still walked away from him. Yes, they were taken over. Yes, they were destroyed at times, but he kept calling his people, his nation of Israel, who were scattered, back to him. That's mercy. That is awesome mercy. Now, there's one thing about mercy that I found as I was reading. Mercy's not grace. Those are two different things. And this is actually where it really hit me. So, again, we define mercy. Mercy is the withholding of punishment. Grace is receiving something that we don't deserve. That's grace. The cross, this thing here, obviously not the one Jesus was hung on, we know that. But this represents an amazing example of where mercy and grace meet, right? So Jesus died in our place. That's mercy. He was a sacrifice for us. And then what he offers from that sacrifice is the grace. So indulge me here if you can. I won't try to knock anything over here, Zach, I promise, buddy. This side of the cross is judgment coming at you, right? Coming at us before Jesus, that sort of thing. Not anger, shall I say, but basically the judgment of knowing that we have messed up, right? And we are not in right relation with God. That's on this side coming at you. As soon as Jesus died, into my hands I commit my spirit. Grace showed up. Everything here that we deserve stopped, and everything that is freely given to us that we don't deserve, then flowed from the cross. Does that make sense? Okay. And when I thought about that this week when I was praying through this, it was just like, wow. It was, I wouldn't say it was a vision, but it was just the visual of everything bad was here. And as soon as he said, into my hand I commit my spirit, it was like the brakes just hard stop, and it stopped right here. Like it's literally right there. And everything, his love, his grace, his offer of eternal life started shooting out for everyone to accept, started flowing, that we could have eternal life and a right relationship, a covenant with him. And when I realized that, I was just like, wow, holy jump. Like to me, for whatever reason, it really hit me kind of hard. Just as God's mercy is shown to us, we must love mercy for those around us. And that's a hard thing. And again, I tend to be a pretty hard guy. And that mercy is something that I'm still learning to work through with God. Now here's the really third one. So we got through justice, got through mercy a little. And I would encourage you to go through Micah 6:8 and really dig into these three: justice, mercy, walk humbly with your God, on your own. Because if you do the homework, if you kind of do it, it's pretty amazing, right? Walking humbly with your God. Wow. Okay, wow. Here's the first thing I really have through my life have had to deal with is trying to figure out how to be humble. Humility is a hard thing for us, right? For all of us, I think, at some point. And I think at times with God, we sometimes have false humility. Not all of us. I know I've always had false humility. I've always had to check myself, right? So when I started digging into walking humbly with your God, it was like, well, what does that entail? Well, here's some aspects of it. So walking humbly with God is dependence and submission, right? And I apologize if you can't read this at the back. I tried to make the words as big as possible, but this is the best I could do, so I'm just reading them out here for you. So some aspects: dependence and submission, acknowledging your inability without God and yielding to his plan, letting him go first in your life in all situations. Authenticity, being real and honest with God, dropping the pretense, and finding freedom in his presence, even if you're broken. I think, and again, for a lot of years, I struggled with authenticness. I used to think when you approach God, it's like, oh, Lord, thank you, you are so awesome. You know, like this kind of, unfortunately, I was... when I was a kid, I was raised in the strict Baptist church, okay? The strict Baptist church, you didn't do that during worship. The only time you clapped your hands during worship is you were trying to kill a fly, all right? Like you just didn't do it. Now, was that wrong? No, not necessarily, but it basically, I understood God to approach God in a not authentic way. Rather than if God was in front of me, like, you know, say where Scott's sitting, right, and he's going, hey, Chris, how you doing? I'd be like, oh, no, I'm good. Yeah, no, I'm great. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, okay. Even though he's God, he would know, no, I know you're struggling mentally. Just be honest with me. What's going on, right? We need to be authentic with God in that manner. Like, he already knows what's on your tongue before you say it. So you might as well just say it to him. Even if you want to rant at him, I promise you, he's big enough to take your rant. All right? Being authentic with him. He loves that. I know he loves that. Right action. This isn't just an inner feeling. It's lived outwardly by acting justly, doing right according to God. Focusing on his character. Okay, this one I have not been able to get through in my personal life. Like I'm still focusing on this here. Focusing on God's character. Recognizing God's authority, his power, his mercy, his grace, but most importantly, recognizing and honoring his holiness. I think, now this is my personal opinion, so you can disagree with me all you want. I am fine with that. I think we do God a complete injustice when we go, God is love. Right? God is love. He's so kind. Yeah, all that wonderful, touchy-feely stuff. Yes, he is all that. But before his kindness, before his love, before his grace, he is holy. That's it. He is holy. If you had, and Zach, what's that dude's name? Finocchio? What's his name? Finocchio. All right, Finocchio, Nathan Finocchio. We did this, I think, last year or so, a Bible session or a study session with him. And he said, he said something similar, but he was like, you had a lens of love and a lens of holiness. You need to use the lens of holiness first, and then the lens of love or the lens of grace or whatever it is, right? To then look at the situation, because God is holy before he is anything else. And I was stuck on this character, this holiness, because now I'm like, well, how do I approach a holy God? You approach him with Jesus. You approach him through Jesus. That's where what I've found, that's where this grace that Jesus offers, that's how I'm approaching God, with Jesus' grace. We can approach through Jesus. But I have to remind myself all the time that God is holy. A dynamic relationship, this is another aspect of walking humbly with God. It's a continuous journey, like walking with someone, involving conversation, connection, and growth in love. A dynamic relationship is hard, right? I think one of the terms I always heard was doing life, right? Doing life with someone, and that's great. But it's ideally that's a dynamic relationship. You're constantly in communication, right? Talking, walking, growing with that person. Our walk with God is no different. It is very dynamic. Like for me, walking humbly for the longest time, really now that I look at it, it's something different than what I understand walking with God is, what I now understand walking humbly with God is. What I thought walking humbly with God was, and being submissive, I thought it was doing something that God wanted me to do, even though honestly I didn't want to do it, right? Like, go talk to that homeless guy. There'd been a number of times where I was younger, and it wouldn't be like an audible voice, but like that, you kind of, I think I got to go talk to this person. Well, it would be like the homeless, where when we lived in Winnipeg, or even here sometimes, right? They'd be like, you should talk to that homeless person. I'm like, I don't want to. They smell, right? I don't want to. Like, one of the things that I've had to work on with homeless people in this town drives me nuts is when a homeless guy looks at me and goes, give me money. My first reaction is like, no. That's not God's reaction. God's reaction would be, okay, there you go, and just leave it, all right? I was more like a yes man when I was younger. And I thought that's what you should be for God. That's just, yes, God, you want me to do it? Yes, God, even though my heart wasn't in it. No. What I came to realize was that, walking humbly with God now is that I'm just before I even take a step, it's not every step I'm doing it, but I get up in the morning around 5:36, have some breakfast, but then I sit and I start my day with God. I sit in the dark with a cup of coffee and I go, God, what am I going to do tonight? What do you want me to do? That's how we start the day walking humbly with God. Start it with Him. Now, it's easier to do that. It's hard sometimes to do it too, and especially, if we're parents, we have a lot of stuff going on in the house. It's hard to carve out time for God. We still have to carve that time out. The most important, how I'm squirreling right now. My mind's like racing. Like if you could look at my mind, it's like, say this, say this, say this. I'm like, okay, so while I'm stopping here, I'm just trying to calm things down a bit. How do we start walking humbly with God? Okay, well, here we go. Most important step, follow Jesus. That's step one. If you're not following Jesus, it's not that hard. It's not a religious experience. Really, it's not religious. It's relational, okay? Follow Him. Get to know Him. Get to know who He is and what He's willing to do with you and for you. We start by getting then into His Word every day, studying it, absorbing it, retaining it, and using it every day. And then we honestly and earnestly spend time in prayer. And again, not a religious experience when you pray. Like most people, if they heard me pray, it would be like I'm talking with Seath or with James or whoever. It is not a religious experience. It's a relational experience. I always start personally offering praise and thanks. You know what? Lord, thanks for this house. Thanks for my family. Thanks for my wife. Then I ask for forgiveness. Lord, I messed up. Help me, forgive me. And then I bring my needs and my fears to Him, and I talk it through Him. I talk it through it with Him. And sometimes my prayer doesn't stop. Like just because I say amen doesn't mean the conversation ends. You guys realize that, right? Just go, thank you, Lord, amen, and then you go on your day. No, you can talk to God as you're going through the day. It's very easy. Here's the one thing I have a hard time with, because James and I have talked about this, waiting for a response. I am probably one of the most impatient men you're ever going to find at times. And waiting for God to respond is incredibly frustrating sometimes and hard for me. But here's the one thing I've found. What I found was I expected God to respond with, like, talking with Scott. Hey, Scott, how's it going? Good, Chris, how are you? Like, I wanted that response, that response. God doesn't always do that. Sometimes he responds in a whisper. And you really got to look for his response. Walking humbly with God is much like justice. It's active. There's no passivity in walking humbly with God. It's a 50-50 relationship, walking humbly with him. Any relationship we have, whether it's marriage, friendship, requires effort, work to strengthen that friendship. Our relationship with Yahweh requires the same effort, but more. Realistically, this relationship, and I love my wife, she is a good woman, I do love her. My relationship with God supersedes that. He's number one. And it should be the priority in your lives too, right? Now, going back to when I was younger and dumb, I didn't get that. And I'm going back now, I'm not squirreling, I'm actually trying to weave things in here, but going back to my parents, I didn't realize it till like a few years ago, that spiritually my family that I was raised in was so lopsided. So my mom was the spiritual head. And in God's order, it should be the man. And my dad missed the boat on that. He did. And I don't hold that against him. It's just he missed the boat. And that legacy, unfortunately, of that lopside, that legacy continued into my life. So the anger that he had, that he displayed, hitting walls or stomping or that sort of thing, that creeped up. I learned it from him. Unfortunately, that was part of his legacy he left me. When he died back in 2011, I don't tell this story a lot, but now that I do tell you guys, because one of the struggles I had when I was younger was porn. Well, I found out why, because when I emptied his house, you know those big garbage bags, construction garbage bags? I filled up 3/4 of it with nothing but porn, all hidden in the basement. And I looked at that and I was like, oh, no wonder that's been a struggle. Now, I've gone through healing and deliverance. Okay, it's gone, it's great, but that legacy was left for me, and unfortunately, I picked part of that up. My dad did not understand what walking humbly with God was, unfortunately. He started to, like the last year of his life, we talked more about God, but unfortunately, that 1 year, it's not that it didn't make up for it, that's not what I'm trying to say, but I learned, unfortunately, everything spiritual and good about God from my mother, where my dad should have been leading that example in the house. Okay? Man. I thought it'd be easier to tell that story, and it's just like, no, it's hard. It's crazy. I don't want you to get the bad, so I'm squirreling for a reason here. I don't want you to get the bad picture of my dad. He was a good man, right? He protected his family. I remember my dad went nose to nose with a cop because this cop pulled my dad over, thought he was speeding, and he started almost belligerently insulting my dad. My dad, he was like 280, 290, right? Big dude. Got out of the car and nose to nose with the cop going, I don't care who your boss is. I'll call the mayor. I know the mayor. He's like, in fact, let's go to your station. We'll call the mayor together. That sort of thing. And I remember I was like 11 on this old cottage dirt road going, I'm going to be left on the side of the road while my dad's arrested, right? My dad was willing to, I know that my dad was willing to fight for his family and to protect. So it was a good thing. But as I got older and I started getting into the Word, I realized that he had missed the mark. And the mark was really, I'll do the sermon in the sentence because I don't have anything fancy. It's just going to be Micah's words. I kind of took a word out. Instead of mortal, I said, he has shown you, O man, O woman, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Now, that's the sermon in the sentence, okay? Here's a question, because it's a question I've asked myself, to the guys in the room. If you're going through stuff, and your marriage is going through stuff, if you started to follow just those three things, do you think your marriage could get better? Do you think your life could get better? The answer is yes. Same question for you, ladies, right? Same exact question. And I think most people, yes, there's some head nodding. People would be like, yeah, of course it can get better. Okay. Here's the thing I found is, again, I love my wife. Lisa is a good woman. She's a great mother. She does not always deserve. She sometimes says some things that hurt me. And I know I have said things that have hurt her, especially when we were, younger in our marriage. But if we're going to be serious about following God and listening to God, we got to start following that. And that is for me to give mercy to Lisa. That is for me to show grace to Lisa. And to love and to seek mercy for Lisa. And then to walk humbly with God as I'm doing it. No, I'm not gonna say that right now. Why are you laughing, Zach? It was a little off script, but that's like you have to forgive me, and I'm sorry if you think I'm squirreling. I'm getting this like, say this, you need to say this now, say that now. So the same thing applies to you single folk, or folks that maybe you're in a relationship. It's the exact same thing. If you're single and you don't have someone, seek justice, love mercy, walk humbly with your God, with people around you. Same thing, right? And you can start this week. Very easy. So, thank you, Jesus. Oh my goodness, we got through this. All right. We're going to go through communion. Go to communion, not through communion. We're going to go to communion now. Okay? So here's the thing. Life is challenging. Death of a loved one, marital relations, issues, financial issues, anxiety. Hey, I'm the poster boy. Pain, whatever life is throwing at us, God has always provided a reminder and still provides a reminder through his words. He provides a way to refocus on him. Doesn't matter what you're going on, what's happening to you, God will always help you refocus on him. He's given us a reminder of how to make it through life while still dealing with pain, hurt, frustration. And we can do it together with him. So the next verse there, if you got it. Yeah, there you go, Matthew. This is how you're doing it through life. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. I like this part. And learn from me. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your soul. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light.